Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on the Zee Bee It's a Honey. It's going to be a trip down memory lane. This is a Zebco 202 fishing reel. It was first introduced in 1961, and this version of it, I believe, is the first of the versions. Zebco subtitled it the Zee Bee, and I know that it's an early one because it's manufactured by Zebco, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and no zip code. There is a manual in here that does tell us where to mail the warranty information, and on there it's just information without zip code, and zip code I believe was introduced in 1965. I might be off by a year or two, but we know that this is the early version of the reel. Well, Scott got this at a flea market out in the West Coast there. At the time, this reel was selling for $5.95, and it was actually purchased by through Unimart, which is a retailer I'm not familiar with. When we did the previews on this reel, we said we got a problem here. This thumb button is not going in, so it's not pushing up the spool or that. And so we'll show you how to take this reel apart and see if we can't correct the problem. And I know many folks have had the Zebco 202 as one of their first reels. It was a plastic cased reel, and it served an awful lot of folks very well for a long time. And it's come back in a lot of iterations. I think it's still out there today, but this is one of the first with the plastic. So let's show you how to do this then. We'll start with the disassembly, and we'll take off the external pieces first, and that's the top cover, or the front cover, I guess. If you're looking at it this way, it would be the front. And while I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please hit the notification button. That way you'll see all of the videos that I'm posting, and you'll get to choose which ones you like to see. Well, this is another indication that this is an early one because it has the white kind of bezel cap here. I'm not quite sure what that cap is called, but it's part of the spinner head, I guess. The later ones came in a kind of a banana yellow color as opposed to the white. So this is among the earliest of the 202s made. This has a coin slot. You could actually take this off with a coin if you didn't have a screwdriver. And for all the small pieces and parts, I'm going to put them into a parts tray. I use the back of or the bottom of a fast food container to do that. I'm not wearing a glove today. I'm not quite sure what we're going to find in here, but I think there's something that's an issue here with the button, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve it. Well, to continue with that then, the next thing you want to do is take off the spinner head, and that just simply lifts up, and just checking for dirt and the like while we do that. Underneath that spinner head then, you're going to find a connector here. This little C-clip, it's a big C-clip actually, is the next part to go. And I think that goes, I'm just trying to remember my pieces. I think we take that off after we take the handle assembly out. So let's go over to the handle. I'm going to use a nut driver on this one. This is a 5/16. I think it fits the handle. Yep, there you go, fits the handle nut. I'll take that and put that into there, and we'll remove the handle next. That should simply kind of just lift off of here. Just taking a moment, there's some dried grease on there. When you have that, then what you want to do is you want to grab your case, and you're going to lift up and pull out. And you have to lift up and pull out because this wheel here is inside the clip, and that's going to cause the issue. And then again, when you go to reassemble, you're going to put it in this way, kind of tilting it so that you can get that adjuster back in. Well, this is a non-star drag, so let's go over here first, take a look. Well, the button's moving, right? The cast button is moving. It may not be moving all that well, but it is moving. And there's no indication that that's the cause of the reason why that button doesn't push. So we're going to try and come down to the rest of it then and see if we can't take that off completely. The next step is to remove this big E-clip. You're going to use a screwdriver for that. And be careful, this is a spring, it can shoot. Just kind of work it out like that. And once you take that off, the next step that you would want to do is to remove the spool. And all of this is pretty tight stuff here, but it does come off. That is your spool. You can tell we have the line on there. Always good to note when your line that you have the proper orientation. This click ratchet here, all the saw teeth, that's the bottom of this piece. And we're noticing here just a lot of dried grease. That's probably been dried for a long time now. So we'll just going to use a little bit of common sense. I'm going to put a glove on, and then we're going to spray that with some penetrating oil, which will take off that dried grease there. I'm guessing that's what's caused the issue within this reel. My guess is that everything is dry in here, and that's why that mechanism isn't moving. All right, I'm just going to put a little bit on here. I'm going to grab a cotton swab, and we'll just mop it up to take care of that. Okay, the next part then should be to remove the main axle shaft. That usually comes out from below. And here we're seeing what's going on here. Nothing's moving at the moment. Okay, so I just sprayed this down with some penetrating oil, hopefully to loosen up the grease. Now we should be able to push the axle shaft through. There we go. And we should be able to remove it. There we go. So we're going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to oil that up again. Actually, I'm going to use a little paper towel underneath here. Give that a good squirt of penetrating oil. And I think what we have as the issue here is just this has been sitting a long time without any service. We can see that there's some accumulated dried grease here. Let's get rid of that. You can see the residue from the penetrating oil. And now we should be able to bring this out and over. Boy, that's been there a long time. And that's a little bit of the problem here as well. So I think what's happened here is probably that the plastic channel has probably swollen. So let's see if we can't just start turning this and pushing this as we do that. There you go. The little tricks you learn over time. Let's see if we can get it out the rest of the way now. I think that's probably the issue with this whole thing. Wow, it's just a lot of dried grease. I'm going to put my finger on the hole there to block it, and I'm going to just kind of shoot it up with the penetrating oil. And again, I'm just going to give a healthy dose to these two pieces here. I'm going to run that cotton swab in there, see if we can't get some of that dirt and junk off of there. I want to make sure this one doesn't turn either. So this is the adjuster for some drag pressure. See if we can't free that up at all. There we go. Takes a while. Just make sure it moves in and out. Alright, well, it's probably about as good as it's going to get, but it does move now. Alright, so we know that the issue is dried grease in this one. That's not a problem at all. This is a nicely made reel. Probably, again, between, I'm going to say 60 and 65. I want to get the old dried grease off of the shaft here. And you can see it looks like it's a stainless shaft. $5.95 in 1960 was not inconsequential. It was fairly expensive. Certainly when you went to buy one, it was more than a couple hours work for sure. Maybe a day's wage, I don't know. I have to go back and kind of reset, but $5.95 was not cheap. Alright, all of the grease is out of the channel now. We've buffed off the bar. We did that with some steel wool, and penetrating oil was on there. We have a little bit of grease that remains under the collar here. That could be a reason why this got stuck as well. And be careful when you're working plastic parts now. you can't really abuse these things like you could if it was a metal piece. You have to go gently with this stuff. All right, we're going to clean out the rest of the case then. I'm going to oil this little revolver here, this action-packed piece. And now we're going to have to buff the shaft on the main gear. And we just saw how tough that was to get out. So that's shellacked oils and greases that have probably been there for a real long time. So if you have questions on this reel or any reel in particular, and maybe you're working on a reel and you're stumped at some point, maybe your reel is misbehaving and you can't quite figure out what the diagnosis is, why it's having the trouble that it is. If you leave those in the comments section, I'll try and answer those for you to the best that I can in terms of knowing it. All right, so we've just cleaned all of the teeth out. These teeth seem fine. We're going to take some grease now. I use a fishing reel grease, and I only recommend that you use fishing reel greases. In this case, I'm using a Penn Precision reel grease. I don't have a preference for any particular manufacturer other than I prefer that it be a fishing reel grease. All right, we should be able to get this back in. And more importantly, we should see that it turns nice and easily. Look at that, huh? Next one up then, we're going to put some grease onto the gear. And we're also going to put grease onto the shaft. This one was sticking as well. We had to use the penetrating oil to free that up. So that's next up. I'm going to put that in and up, lock it in, and we should be able to turn this now. Let's just go put the handle on, give it a little bit of a test. There you go, we're turning nicely. First time that this thing's turned in a long time, I'm sure. All right, so I've laid out all my parts for the reassembly, and once we've got the gear shaft turning, remember what we did was we degreased all of this, we removed these pieces, all cleaned them up, these are working fine. And this is your drag adjuster. This is going to put pressure on the spool, and that's going to determine if your line is pulling out or not, how fast it can pull out. That's the purpose there. If you look at this wheel, there's going to be one flat spot on this wheel. It may be hard to see here. There it is. So there's a flat spot here. So that's the minimal drag right there. And then it's kind of an oblong. As you turn it, that's going to push this piece in and out. And that's going to apply more drag pressure to the spool. So how does it do that? Well, in order to reassemble a reel, the first piece in then is the spool. And this is the click ratchet that it's going to be working against, the saw teeth. You want to put that in over the top. And then down here now, oftentimes this will get trapped because it's, if you try to do it this way, you need to take that drag lever here and you need to pull that out and then push down on the spool. Now you'll see the operation. So this is kind of at the low point, and if you turn that, you'll find out that it clicks harder, it's harder to turn. And if you find that flat spot, well, that's the hardest part there. And that's your adjuster of your drag. So if your line is pulling out, that's where you will find the drag operation. You'll see it operating there. So that's that. Okay, once you do that, then you can take the E-clip and you can hold the spool down. I'll do that by putting it in here. Sometimes you can just do this by hand. Sometimes you just need a little bit more if you don't have the hand strength. I'm going to use there we go. That's your E-clip that's installed there. That's going to hold your spool to the body. And now we can take the assembly and we can put that into the two holes here. Make sure that that drag adjuster goes down on the one end, that your handle assembly is on the other, and just snap it into the case. And at that point you can put the handle on. And we'll just take that handle nut my little nut driver and put that in. And then we can come back up top, put the top on now. Now, most of the time they recommend that you push your button in here to extend that shaft so that it makes it easier to put that spool on, or that shield on. Put that on, then we can start the nut. And then we can finish that with the screwdriver. And you want to hold that handle when you're setting that so that it doesn't turn and you can get that last turn there. Then, all right, then finally we have the top cover. Make sure you don't cross strip this as you put that on. And there we go. Beautiful turning reel. Now this does not have the anti-reverse feature here, but that drag washer will be controlled by this, that ratchet tooth, and that will for the most part control your anti-reverse or provide that anti-reverse as part of that drag setup. So that's it. That's your Zebco 202. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. For those of you that have one of these, you now know how to take it apart and service it, and to keep it fishing for a long time to come. To everybody, I appreciate you watching. A special shout out to our first responders and essential personnel and all those that have kept us safe during the pandemic. And to all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.